So I picked something that is, I think, more or less fits the theme of last time. And then I sort of had a dilemma because it's very grim. And so this afternoon I suddenly thought, I'm not so in the mood to read something grim. So I thought I'll read something else that's not at all about the theme, but neither is it grim. I'm a Midwesterner. I come from a very small town in Minnesota. And I grew up Protestant, Scandinavian, and we always follow the rules. So it's so difficult for me to think about not following this rule, but I'm going to, and I think it would be a stretch, but I'm going to say that this section that I read involves something that is most certainly a first and a last time. And that will have to be enough. All you need to know is that the main character, Aaron, is 7 when this section happens. And the book is the present tense. He's in his 40s and he's just moved to San Francisco. But this flashback happens when he's 7, and when he was 5, his father fell off of a parade float and died. And he and his mother had moved to this very small town, 400 people in central Minnesota, and are living there, and they haven't left for 2 years. And so one day his mother announces that they are going to visit an old friend of hers. And so they get in the car and start driving, and I am going to pick up at the moment that they arrive at Gloria, the friend's farmhouse. His mother turned into the driveway and followed it between a stand of trees, curving past a school bus with missing front tires, weeds growing up around it. "Why do they have a bus?" he asked. "I have no idea," said his mother. "Can I look at it?" "No." She spoke sharply. "Later, maybe." They stopped in front of the farmhouse, which was gray and sat on a small incline that sloped up from the driveway. As they got out of the car, 5 dogs emerged from a barn at the end of the driveway and ran toward them, barking and growling. Aaron started to get back inside the car, but a woman came out onto the porch and yelled at the dogs, and they stopped barking and began to wag their tails. The woman stepped off the porch and stood with her hands on her hips, regarding Aaron and his mother. She was not old, but her hair, clipped in a bowl style, was the same weathered gray as the house. She wore striped overalls with a white tank top cut low under her arms and crusty work boots, and her torso was like a tree trunk, solid with no variation in circumference to mark her hips or waist. Aaron had never seen such muscles on a woman. It was as if someone had slit open her arms and stitched oranges inside. "Gloria," his mother said, holding her purse up in front of her. The woman ducked her head. "Dee," she replied. She did not step closer. "This is Aaron," his mother said. The woman ducked her head again, said, "Aaron," and "You better come in then." And they followed her up the porch steps to the door, where his mother gave him a shove so that he entered first, tripping slightly into the room. There were doilies everywhere, on the furniture and under knickknacks, and even one hanging over the couch, that one the size of a car tire and stiff with starch. "I learned to tat a few years ago," the woman said, sounding apologetic. His mother fingered one of the doilies. "You were always good with your hands," she said. A flush spread from Gloria's neck to her chin and cheek. She spun and left the room. Aaron's mother settled on the couch, patting it to indicate that he should join her, but he remained standing. He did not feel at ease in other people's homes. To demonstrate that she did, his mother lifted a bowl of walnuts from the coffee table and rummaged through it, selecting one, which she fit into the nutcracker. It resembled the vise in his father's workshop. As his mother turned the handle, a large screw applied pressure to the nut. Aaron drew closer, waiting for the nut to burst, but when it did, he still jumped, his heart knocking hard in his chest. He looked up, and there was a dwarf. The dwarf sat in a wheelchair, perched atop a cushion. He wore a bright red shirt buttoned to the very top, the deep creases along both sleeves, pointing the way to his inordinately large head. His hair was the color of the rust that collected on cars that had faced numerous Minnesota winters, and it clashed wonderfully with his shirt and with the lurid pinks and purples of the Afghan wrapped like a skirt around his legs. His feet, clad in black sandals over brown socks, dangled just above the footrests. All of these features Aaron noted only later, for he could not stop staring at the man's nostrils, from which protruded tusks, slick like melting icicles. The man scowled at Aaron. "This is Clarence," Gloria said, "my brother." She placed a hand atop the man's head, and he scowled again. "I'm pleased to meet you, Clarence," Aaron's mother said. She rose and went to shake his hand. "Clary has really been looking forward to meeting you," Gloria said. "Haven't you, Clary?" He grimaced at Aaron a bit longer before turning to Aaron's mother. "Quite," he said, and shook her outstretched hand. "Dolores, sister has told me a good deal about you. I understand that you are widowed." His voice was high and nasal, but he had acquired the dual habits of enunciating and speaking slowly, pausing to breathe through his mouth. Aaron's mother nodded, her hand still gripped by his. "From what sister has told me of your late husband, it would seem very little grieving is required." He released her hand. "Hit by a pack of Shriners, sister claims. Can this be true?" He looked coyly up at Aaron's mother, who nodded uncertainly. Clarence laughed, which triggered a coughing bout. "Poor Clary," Gloria said. "He has such trouble breathing these days." She patted his head again. "Why don't you take Aaron to your room and show him your collection?" "They're called archives, sister," Clarence said, "and I'm quite certain that they would be of little interest to a fellow his age." He glared at Aaron. Gloria bent and whispered in her brother's ear. "Fine, but will you push me, sister?" he said in a whining, peevish voice. "Aaron can push you," said Aaron's mother. "I think he'd enjoy that." Aaron could think of nothing he would enjoy less, but he knew no appropriate way to express his reservations. So he positioned himself behind the chair and gripped its handles. It was heavy, but he managed to push it across the room while Clarence gave orders. "They want to be alone, you know," Clarence informed him. But Aaron, who was focused on maneuvering the chair down a narrow hallway, did not reply. "Are you afraid of me?" Clarence asked a moment later. "Yes," Aaron replied, truthfully. "Because of my tusks, no doubt. I noticed you staring at them. Your mother, on the other hand, feels obligated to avert her eyes. Tell me, young Aaron, at which do you suppose I take more offense? Your fascination or your mother's revulsion?" "Are they like elephant tusks?" Aaron asked. He did not fully understand Clarence's question. Clarence snorted. "Elephant tusks are made of ivory, which is quite sought after in most places in the world, while mine are nothing more than adenoids run amok. You may touch one if you like, but only if you are extremely careful." Aaron came from behind the wheelchair and leaned against the left armrest, steadying himself. Clarence's eyes were closed, but as Aaron placed his index finger against the nearest tusk, Clarence sighed, the air from his nostrils rippling across Aaron's finger. "Does that hurt?" Aaron asked. "On the contrary," Clarence said. "You have an exceedingly light touch." Aaron stroked the tusk once, then retracted his hand. "Do they grow?" he asked. "Indeed they do, and far too fast. I had them removed just a few years ago, but I fear that another operation is imminent." Aaron continued to lean against Clarence's wheelchair, gazing at the tusks. "I love them," he said.